When Stevie Smith was asked for a brief biography, she made it really brief. Born in Hull, moved south at the age of 4, lived ever since in London. There's a lot that's going on in and around the margins of a statement like that, even though it looks straightforward. And I think the same could be said of the poems and their own impersonations of straightforwardness. In an essay that she wrote entitled Simply Living, she makes a fine distinction. She talks about the pleasures of simplicity. Enjoyment lurks in simplicity. Lurks is the word, I think. You do not seek enjoyment, it swims up to you. For Smith, simplicity is something that you arrive at. It's not something that you settle for. The simple is the essence. It's not the opposite of the complex. And one poem I think can really illustrate this well, Magna est veritas. With my looks I am bound to look simple or fast. I would rather look simple. So I wear a tall hat on the back of my head that is rather a temple. And I walk rather queerly and comb my long hair, and people say, don't bother about her. So in my time I have picked up a good many facts, rather more than the people do who wear smart hats. And I do not deceive because I am rather simple too. And although I collect facts, I do not always know what they amount to. Starting with just the phrase rather simple. That word isn't trying to deceive exactly, but given that the word rather has appeared 4 times within the first 6 lines of this poem, each with a slightly different inflection, I think rather can be read not merely as the confirmation of the simple, but the complication of it. When I read that, I think I read with a fairly straightforward stress on the words do and am, as if the lines were saying, and I do have to admit, I am simple. But they can also be heard like this. And I do not deceive because I am rather simple too. In other words, she's simple just as other people are, but they do deceive both themselves and others by thinking that their smart hats make them smart. The thing with Stevie Smith in a way is that the longer you look at the lines, the stranger they get. Just take the first 3 words of this poem, with my looks. Certainly, looks refers to the way she's seen, her appearance, but it also has a sort of subterranean sense that it's her acts of looking that are what she's hinting at. I think that there's this eerie, uncanny feel to Smith's poems often that you, and this happens to her drawings too, that you feel you're being invited to be a spectator or to watch something as though you were looking at an object or an exhibit, but it transpires that the poem or the image is possibly watching you. You thought you were a spectator, but you actually turn out to be something closer to an accomplice or a participant in what's unfolding here. And I think that Stevie Smith's drawings don't simply illustrate the poems, they play around with their meanings. They sometimes suggest ways of thinking or saying that the poems themselves don't quite say. One example of this, I think, would be Parrot. The old sick green parrot, high in a dingy cage, sick with malevolent rage. But the image, at least to my eyes, presents a rather cheery looking parrot. Smith, I think, like Edward Lear before her and perhaps Blake before him, is interested in watching how images might pull against text or suggest different ways of reading a voice. Another example would be the 2-line poem, I'll Have Your Heart, which goes, I'll have your heart, if not by gift, my knife shall carve it out. I'll have your heart, your life. The image there, I think, presents a quite cosy interior, from the flowers on the bedspread to the flowers on the dress. Maybe one of the things that she's thinking about is how domestic interiors and cosy visions of domesticated bliss aren't all they're cracked up to be, or maybe cover stories for other things that are going on.